The New York Yankees just did something to the Chicago Cubs on August 1st, 2026, that had the entire baseball world paying attention, and the performance on the field was only half the story. Because while the Yankees were shutting down the Cubs in dominant fashion, something was happening behind the scenes that nobody in the building was talking about publicly, but everybody in baseball already knows is coming. A trade. Not a minor deadline pickup. Not a depth piece. A massive, franchise-altering, history-making trade that sources say is closer to happening than anyone outside the Yankees' inner circle realizes. The game was the headline. The trade is the story. And today we are breaking down both in a way that will leave you completely unable to close this tab until you have heard every single detail. Subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because this Yankees trade story is moving faster than anyone expected, and I am covering every development the second it surfaces. You cannot afford to miss what comes next. Let's get all the way into it. Let me start with what actually happened on the field on August 1st, 2026, because the Yankees' performance against the Cubs deserves proper acknowledgement before we get to the trade bombshell that is about to reshape this franchise. The Yankees came into this game against Chicago carrying the weight of a complicated season. Aaron Judge is still in the training room. The AL East race with Baltimore is tighter than New York's payroll and expectations should allow. The trade deadline pressure has been building for weeks, with every baseball analyst in the country debating what moves the Yankees need to make before the window closes. Into all of that pressure and uncertainty, the Yankees went out and delivered a performance so clean, so dominant, so precisely executed that it reminded everyone watching what this team looks like when everything is working the way it was designed to. Gerrit Cole was absolutely spectacular. From the first pitch to the last out, Cole operated with the kind of controlled aggression that makes him one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball when he is at his peak. His fastball was hitting 97 and touching 98 consistently. His curveball was dropping off the table in ways that Cubs hitters simply could not adjust to, regardless of how many times they saw it. His command was surgical, painting corners, changing eye levels, working both sides of the plate with a precision that made the Cubs lineup look overmatched, even though it is one of the more dangerous offensive groups in the National League. The offensive contribution in the game told its own story. Cody Bellinger, who has been the Yankees' MVP candidate all season with Aaron Judge sidelined, continued his extraordinary campaign with a performance that would have been the lead story on any other day. His at-bats reflected the approach of a hitter who is completely locked in, patient early in counts, aggressive when pitchers made mistakes, and disciplined enough to take his walk when the Cubs decided not to give him anything to hit. The run support Bellinger provided was exactly what Cole needed to pitch freely rather than protectively. The defense was equally impressive. The Yankees turned multiple difficult plays into routine outs in ways that reflect the kind of cohesive defensive unit that develops through consistent playing time and genuine mutual trust. Up the middle, the footwork and communication were exactly what you want to see from a team that believes it belongs in October conversation. Whatever concerns existed about the Yankees' defensive reliability earlier in the season were not visible on August 1st. The final result: a convincing Yankees victory over a Cubs team that entered the game believing they had a legitimate chance to beat New York. Multiple established baseball insiders, people with track records of accuracy on major transactions, began posting within minutes of the game ending that the Yankees are in serious, advanced discussions on a trade that could reshape not just their roster for 2026, but their competitive landscape for the next several years. The reports were careful with language in the way that insider reports are careful when a deal is close but not yet finalized. Not done, not agreed, but advanced discussions and serious conversations and both sides working toward a resolution. The specific phrases that people who cover baseball transactions use when something significant is genuinely imminent. So what is this massive trade? Who is involved? What does it cost? And what does it mean for the Yankees going forward? Let me walk you through everything that is leaked and what it means. The trade involves the Yankees acquiring a starting pitcher from the National League. Specifically, according to multiple reports, the conversations have centered on a frontline ace who fills exactly the rotation need that has been the Yankees' most pressing weakness throughout this season. The name that has appeared most consistently in reports from reliable sources is not the Fernando Tatis rumor that circulated earlier. That conversation apparently went nowhere for the reasons any honest analysis would have predicted. This is a different kind of acquisition. A pitcher. An ace. The specific addition that changes the calculus for any team that has to face New York in October. The financial structure of this trade is apparently what has made it complicated to close, and why it has taken longer than some expected. The pitcher in question has a contract that carries significant remaining commitments, and the Yankees, who are already operating in luxury tax territory that has organizational cost implications, have been negotiating with the other team about how much of that financial obligation moves with the player versus stays with the trading team. These financial negotiations are the reason the deal has not been announced yet. The baseball side, the players involved, the prospect compensation, is apparently closer to settled. The money side is where the final work is being done. Multiple sources have indicated that the Yankees have been willing to include 2 of their top 5 organizational prospects in the deal. That is a meaningful sacrifice that reflects genuine organizational conviction that this trade is worth doing. When a team includes multiple genuine top prospects, not the marginal talent that teams often try to pass off as significant in trade packages, it signals that the front office believes the acquisition changes their competitive ceiling in a way that justifies the cost. The prospect package apparently includes a pitching prospect who has been one of the most talked about arms in the Yankees system, and a position player prospect whose combination of tools and approach has drawn consistent praise from evaluators across the industry. Neither of these players was going to be expendable in a typical transaction. The Yankees are apparently willing to part with them because they believe the addition they received justifies paying that price. Brian Cashman's fingerprints are all over the structure of this deal in ways that reflect his specific deal-making philosophy. Cashman has historically preferred trades that solve specific, identified needs rather than broad roster improvements that sound impressive but lack precision. The pitcher the Yankees are pursuing fills a gap that is not philosophical or strategic. It is concrete and measurable. The Yankees need another arm at the top of the rotation who can take the ball in playoff games and give them a genuine chance to win regardless of what the offense produces on any given night. This trade, if completed, provides exactly that. Now let us talk about the Cubs specifically, and why today's game matters in the context of the trade conversations. The Cubs are not a team that the Yankees needed to shut down to prove they are contenders. Chicago is a competitive team, but not the standard by which you measure October readiness. What the shutdown performance against the Cubs did was provide Cashman and ownership with exactly the kind of evidence they needed to justify moving forward aggressively on the trade. When a team performs as convincingly as the Yankees did today, pitching dominant, defense reliable, lineup producing, it makes the case internally that the roster is genuinely close to championship quality rather than fundamentally flawed. And a roster that is close to championship quality with one missing piece is exactly the kind of roster that justifies paying a significant price for that missing piece. The Cubs game essentially told the Yankees front office, "We are one addition away," and the evidence for that is what you just watched. The timing of the trade reports leaking immediately after the game is interesting and probably not coincidental. In the world of baseball transactions, timing is never entirely accidental. When reports of imminent deals start appearing within minutes of a dominant performance, it often reflects a deliberate communication strategy, the organization wanting the narrative of competence and championship readiness to be the context in which news of a major acquisition is received. The message being sent to the baseball world is, "We just proved we are a team worth making this kind of investment in. Now we are making it." Let us also examine what this trade means for the pitching staff composition and the rotation structure going forward, because the baseball intelligence of how this acquisition fits matters as much as the headline of making it. The Yankees currently have Gerrit Cole as their unquestioned ace, the starter who takes the ball in the most important games, and who has been their most reliable pitcher throughout a season that has required reliability from unexpected places. Adding another frontline pitcher behind Cole does not just give the Yankees two quality starters. It creates a qualitative shift in how they approach every series. With two aces at the top of your rotation, you can structure a series so that your best two pitchers each start on full rest and can potentially pitch multiple times in a 5 or 7 game series. You can be aggressive with your regular starters knowing you have quality following them rather than just adequate depth. You can approach potential playoff matchups against teams with strong offenses knowing that your pitching gives you a path to winning even if your offense has an off night. That structural advantage is what championship teams are built on. The Yankees have Cole. They are apparently about to have Cole plus an ace. The combination creates options that change how they compete from this point forward. The bullpen implications also deserve attention. When you have two starters who can consistently pitch deep into games, your bullpen workload decreases in ways that compound over the course of a season. Relievers who have been overworked in a rotation that did not always give them adequate starting pitcher length get an opportunity to be fresher and more effective in high-leverage situations. The ripple effects of adding an ace to the rotation extend through the entire pitching staff. Let us talk about what the response has been from around the league to these trade reports, because the reactions from other organizations reveal how they view the Yankees' potential acquisition. Teams in the AL East, Baltimore specifically, are reportedly monitoring this situation closely. The Orioles understand that a Yankees team with Judge returning eventually plus an added ace at the top of the rotation. Teams in the American League wild card race are similarly recalibrating. The Yankees shutting down the Cubs combined with reports of a major pitcher addition creates a competitive picture that teams chasing the same playoff spots have to account for. The calculus of what you need to add changes when the team you are competing with is apparently about to add an ace. National League teams are watching from a different vantage point, but with equal interest. The prospect of facing a Cole plus ace rotation in a potential World Series matchup is the kind of thing that influences how teams in the senior circuit think about their own trade deadline moves. If the Yankees complete this deal, it changes the theoretical difficulty of reaching and winning a championship for every team in baseball. The fan reaction to the trade reports has been everything you would expect from New York. Yankees fans who have been riding the emotional roller coaster of a season without Judge, managing expectations, maintaining faith, watching a team that is good but not great fight for playoff position, have responded to the reports with a combination of excitement and cautious anxiety. The excitement is obvious. The anxiety reflects the specific Yankees fan psychology that has been shaped by years of watching big moments become complicated in unexpected ways. But the October possibility, the specific shape of what the Yankees could become if this trade closes, is compelling enough that even the most cautious Yankees fan cannot help doing the math. Cole pitching Game 1 of a playoff series. The new ace pitching Game 2. The offense that still features Bellinger and the rest of a talented lineup doing enough to support that pitching. Judge returning at some point, and adding the dimension that transforms good into genuinely frightening. The picture that emerges is one of genuine championship contention in a way that the 49-44 record does not fully capture. Now let us address the obvious question that needs to be answered honestly. What if the trade does not close? What if the financial negotiations hit an obstacle that neither side is willing to move past? What if the prospect package the other team wants is more than the Yankees are comfortable giving? These are real possibilities that deserve acknowledgement. If this deal falls through, the Yankees are left making their deadline with smaller additions, the kind of surgical moves that help at the margins without changing the fundamental picture. They are still a competitive team. They are still a team with Cole and Bellinger, and a core that believes in itself. But they are a team whose ceiling without the ace addition is playoff presence rather than playoff dominance. The difference between those two outcomes is significant enough to justify the aggression that Cashman apparently has brought to these negotiations. A team that makes the playoffs and loses in the first round leaves a season feeling incomplete. A team that makes the playoffs with two aces at the top of the rotation and a returning judge in the lineup is a team that has legitimate reason to believe every series it plays is winnable. The next 24 to 48 hours are going to be defining. Either this trade closes and the Yankees season narrative shifts from complicated to compelling, or the negotiations hit their limit and we understand the ceiling of what this Yankees team is going to be in 2026. There is genuine suspense here. The controlled experiment of today's game against the Cubs showed what the Yankees are. The trade reports suggest what they are trying to become. The space between those two things is where the next chapter of this season gets written. The Yankees shut down the Cubs on August 1, 2026 in a performance that reminded everyone this team is genuinely dangerous even in its current incomplete form. And the reports that followed immediately after the final out suggest that the form is about to become significantly less incomplete. A massive trade is coming. The details are still being finalized. The financial negotiations are apparently the last obstacle between the Yankees and the kind of rotation that makes every team in baseball recalibrate their October expectations. As of today,